here with Maarten after a season at Ajax back in the Netherlands. Let's bring it back to where it all began for you. What's one of your earliest goalkeeping memories?
Well, one of my earliest goalkeeping memories, I was a striker until I was 15, but I played futsal, goalkeeper, when I was younger. And then we actually had this tournament in Belgium. It was like futsal, but then outside. And it was a tournament where we play against like the youth of Genk, Sint-Truiden, like some big youth departments. And then I think that was when I fell in love with goalkeeping. I think I won goalkeeper of the tournament there, and at that time I was still struggling what I liked the most, if it was striker or goalkeeping, because there was no offside yet. And then when offside came, I had to run more, and it was definitely goalkeeping. And then at the under 15s I decided to become goalkeeper. But I would say that those tournaments, I think we went like 3 straight years. Yeah, those were great memories of goalkeeping.
I think those academy days, especially those academy tournaments, have something magical. You're with the guys, you're away from home.
Yeah,
you're playing a lot of games.
Exactly. In bunk beds or in mats, and I definitely think that was something special.
And what's an aspect from futsal goalkeeping that you probably use the most in traditional goalkeeping?
I think the last years, playing with the feet. I think, there were days where they would permit to stop a ball underneath your feet, but now it actually comes back. At Ajax we can teach sometimes to control the ball with the feet or like underneath the feet. And then I would also say maybe blocking, and also just not being afraid for the ball, because you play with a different kind of ball.
You get smashed in futsal.
You get smashed there. And also when I was the youngest of 3 brothers, and I only could join if I was goalkeeping, and then they will smash me in my face with the ball. And then I think, from that age, I learned not to be afraid for the ball, which I think is quite important, because it's kind of unnatural to stop balls with all body parts from with that speed. So I think that for sure was one of the keys.
And it's a funny detail, because when I was in the Ajax academy, they always wanted, and that's a couple of years ago, and that shows how goalkeeping evolves even within a 5, 6, 7 year period. They would always say, you don't want the ball under you. You want the ball, take the ball out of the, take it out. And obviously now we're trying to draw in even more the attackers to come and press. Yeah. So it's funny how, like you said, now it's suddenly maybe a futsal tactic. It's coming back in with, keeping it under your foot longer, and really, taking that risk, and then from there helping the team by getting the ball higher up the pitch.
For sure, especially nowadays with the man-to-man press. I think it's changing a lot. It's when they did like zonal pressing, or you always had an advantage somewhere with a +1. And it was just playing the advantage, right? And now with the man-to-man press, it's more, can you find the space? Yeah. Or can you find, like a long ball is not just a random long ball anymore. It's an aimed long ball to get as fast to the goal. So I think football becomes a little bit more chaotic in that way, where it used to be more playing on possession, and now it's a little bit more chaotic. But I'm always always in the World Cups, you see the real trends of new football coming to life. So this is a really interesting part.
And kind of building on that, obviously growing up in the Netherlands, we have that goalkeeper history, we have that style of play. What is something that maybe when you look at playing abroad, coming back, what is something that's so distinctive about Dutch football, Dutch goalkeeping, and something that that players had to adjust with when you're in the US? Was there a centre-back that was like, whoa, why are you playing me this ball in now? Or were they ready for that?
Well, I think I came to a club where I had a Spanish coach. So they had kind of a similar philosophy. He came from Valencia. They also played from the back. So we had the same philosophy, but there was, of course, players who were more comfortable with that, and some players that were like, had to get used to that. But I would say, just for me, the league in the US was very physical, very transitional game, where in Holland it's more tactical game, the game will take more place at midfield, where here I got a lot of more shots on target there, for example, than I got here in Holland. But actually it was great to experience different types of football. Also in the US, because you play on a lot of climates, a lot of surfaces, or they would always adjust to, for example, in Colorado, you play on 2,000 meter high, and the ball travels faster, we will get less oxygen, so they will play like very high intensity. So I think all these stuff to adjust to also things outside of the pitch, and then also certain tactical stuff, it's it shaped me a lot, I think. Also to become more of an athlete, I think, that way.
And I think that's an interesting one where sometimes Ajax Academy goalkeepers, I'm not sure how you experienced that when you were in NSA and when you were at Utrecht, but you probably now have it as well as a first team goalkeeper, where sometimes the Ajax goalkeeper doesn't have that much to do.
Yeah.
And when you're in a different league or with a different team, as a younger goalkeeper or a goalkeeper playing their first couple of seasons, it's good to be put in all those different positions because you learn from it.
For sure.
I would have sometimes a match where you get 1 or 2 saves.
Yeah.
What do you learn from that game?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, as you said, a more transitional game, a lot more crosses coming in, a lot more saves, maybe players that are out of position.
For sure.
Puts you into position to show yourself a lot more and develop a lot more different aspects of the game.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I think also goalkeepers who come from the Ajax Academy are so good with the feet, because they are used a lot into possession and they dominate the games most of the time. But yeah, actually in the goalkeeping part, sometimes they lack maybe some experience into shot stopping because they just don't face that much of shots. So it's very interesting, and that's why I think sometimes it's better to let guys play at a higher age group, for example, where they get. I think Ajax does that a lot with developmental players, and it's always this debate: do you choose results at the youth level, or do you go for growth?
Yeah.
And I think this is one aspect where I think you can better look for growth at a young age, because you want to develop winners, of course, but yeah, I think that can come. Like, I started goalkeeping at 16, so I think you still have all the time to
100%
to do that. So,
and we already said some of the differences maybe on the pitch. How was that move interesting, maybe from a league standpoint, a competition that's getting more and more exposure, some big names obviously coming to the competition. How was that just holistically, making that move to the US?
Yeah, I think if I make a decision, I always look for long-term possibilities. And I think I joined in 22 when there was a COVID bubble here, and luckily in Texas makes its own rules, so everything was open.
It's always bigger and better in Texas.
Yeah, everything's bigger in Texas. But no, I saw great potential from the league, great potential for myself to develop myself as a human being on and off the pitch, develop myself as an athlete too. So it was very, very interesting. Of course, it's always not a gamble, but you never know in a new environment how you're gonna show up. And then luckily, the way how I did it was integrate a lot into the culture, integrate into the people, go to American sports, etc. And I think if you do it that way, you get the love back from the people. So yeah, my first year I was in 3 different fantasy football, American football leagues. I was going to all the American sports, March Madness brackets, etc. And then, because the people embraced me, I felt at home, and then, through that I could, I could become, a steady player on and off the field. I even became captain last year, so that was,
shows that you really integrate into the community as well.
I think that's especially for Texas, where there's Southern hospitality and the people are so friendly, and everyone talks to you on the street and gives you compliments about your shoes, for example. I think this was key for me, because I also did long distance relationship with my girlfriend. My family wasn't there. To not feel lonely, for example. So
it just shows as well how it's not just a move on the pitch, but everything that comes about it, being away from home, adjusting to the different cultures. And you mentioned the different sports. I'm interested, how does that tie in, or did you notice anything about, you said the physical side of the game? Everyone is very athletic. Some players used to play American football, used to play basketball. Was that also a difference in the way that there was training in the gym, for example? Would you train differently in the gym there than maybe over here in Holland? More maybe aggressive with the weights, or an athletic trainer that also worked with American football players?
When I did with my football team or soccer team, how you ever want to call it was more football way, because we had a Spanish guy who controlled everything. So actually we didn't do maximum weights there. We did only 80% of maximum weights, which was quite interesting. And then, but then when in the off season, or when I wanted to do my own training, that's where, for example, I was learning on plyometrics and stuff like that. Then I worked with guys who were also preparing for the NFL Combine, for example. So this was very interesting, and they all come to Dallas because it's a really big hub where people are preparing for the Combine, and
Unreal athletes over there.
Unbelievable. Even, for example, offensive linemen and defensive linemen. For us as people not from the US, we think, oh, those are not athletes because they look quite heavy, etc. But man, these guys are definitely athletes. And it's funny because a lot of times they come from wrestle backgrounds. But I was always kind of interested because, for example, nowadays with crosses, it's very common that we get like two guys on us and we have to
playing with your hands as well, they're holding you down.
Yeah, and so I was now looking at how can I use that into like the crossing and
Interesting.
So now, for example, how Arsenal's doing it, there was a really interesting clip from Raya I saw the other day where he was like tugged someone's shirt and then he just pushed him to punch a ball, and I was like, hey, that's like kind of what an offensive lineman is doing.
With the hands, they also have to be able to knock the hands away from the opponent and then make that move and kind of rush.
And I was even so interested, like their training is only bench pressing and pushing something up. Like it's only
so niche, so specific.
Yeah, I would be quite bored after a while. That's why I'm lucky
meanwhile we have to do basically what every position does. All into one.
Yeah.
So coming back, from the US, as we have spoken about in detail about the different sport cultures, you're coming back to one of Europe's biggest and most historic clubs. How is it for you to settle in and at the same time really hit the ground running, taking that number one spot, getting a lot of minutes, a lot of games here at the highest level?
Yeah, first of all, it was, I think, a full circle moment. I was a big Ajax supporter when I was young, and then I remember I was in Portugal on training camp with FC Dallas. And I already packed so much clothes because I was feeling that something was gonna happen. And then the first night I arrived, and then I got a phone call from my agent, said they were interested. And Ajax was playing an away game in Champions League against Villarreal that day. And then I watched the game, and then things progressed during that week. And then at the end of training camp, I said goodbye to my teammates. My stuff is still in Dallas, to be honest, to this day. I still need to ship it here. And fresh new start after 4 years. It was quite emotional when I had to leave Dallas because I had such a good time there. But then made the step. I had to wait for some paperwork for a couple of weeks, and then after 1 week, Viet got injured. Who was the starter at that point? He was on loan from Liverpool. Vitaly Jaros is his name. A really good guy. But then your responsibility changes. And before I joined Ajax, I had a 2-month winter break with Dallas, and I had the 3-month hamstring tear before. So I hadn't played 90 minutes for 5 months. And then suddenly it also happened on the last moment of the training before the game. So I had 0 reps with the starting 11. And then I think the key is, and that's also from work I did with the past, if you come in like high emotional moments for yourself, and I think the key is to keep it very, very simple and just work with your intuition. So that's what I did. Of course, you had to adjust to some things in the tactics, etc. But keep it very simple, and then as far as the season progressed, I started to add minor things to
as you're growing in the game,
into the season. For example, I never joined the team in the middle of the season. Normally you have a long preseason where you can get used to the playing style, get used to your teammates, etc. But now it was, kind of abrupt. But I kind of embraced that situation and knew that it wasn't realistic that everything was going to be perfect. But I think at the end of the day, I tried to reach every time this consistency. And I think in 13 games I had 7 clean sheets. So that was, was
a great milestone in that short period when you really have that. Like
Yeah.
you said, that short landing space coming in here.
For sure.
But I think it also ties in back to what we said about how much adjusting, how many different scenarios you faced in the US
Yeah.
that allows you to be more adaptable when that next situation arrives where you need to be adaptable again.
Yeah, it was funny because my first away day, we had a bus drive from Amsterdam to Zwolle. But this bus drive, some guys were complaining about like 45 to an hour bus drive. But this was normally my bus drive to the airport, where then I had to fly for 4 hours and had another hour bus drive. So for me, this was such an easy way.
Distances there are insane.
Yeah, and I believe that if you went through tough conditions, this will make you like stronger, you know? So now I was like, oh, this is easy. And then I didn't feel tired of the travel now on the game day. So this is like super compensation in a way where you feel like, oh, now I can do it on easier,
easier circumstances. Exactly. Yeah. And kind of looking back on this whole goalkeeper journey, is there a teammate, a coach, or a goalkeeper coach, could be all three, that have really influenced you throughout the years?
I think my goalkeeper coach at Dallas, he was an Irish coach. His name is Andrew Keeshan, and he's quite kind of intense. But when
Typical Irish.
Yeah, typical Irish. But when I came from Utrecht to Dallas, I kind of lacked my consistency a little bit. I had like amazing games, but then I also had some tough games, which I think is part of being a young goalkeeper, and especially if you play for an emotional club like Utrecht was, then I kind of had those ups and downs a lot. And then he was very intense, but he didn't allow me to have mental breaks in trainings, because I would train 95%, I could go inside. And I think that was so helpful for me those first couple years when I came there, and I became like very, very consistent week in, week out. So that was something that I learned a lot, to not allow myself to have mental breaks, because what you said from your Ajax days, you have some games you don't have anything to do, but you still need to be switched on like for 90 minutes, because you get 1 or 2 moments that you have to be sharp for.
Especially when the players, they get less sharp during the game.
Yeah.
They might get a bit more tired.
Yeah.
And that's usually when you're in those last couple minutes of the game, when you get put under pressure, when you're usually ahead as well.
Yeah, so now I think if you get conscious of that and you create certain techniques, for example, I'm very loud sometimes, and sometimes my defenders are saying to me like, what are you screaming? And then I'm saying like, look, sometimes I'm just screaming to keep myself into the game instead of screaming to. And of course, sometimes you do a lot of like advices to them. But for example, sometimes I scream body shape to them just for myself to be into the game.
Very relatable. I'm like, sometimes I'll coach 3 or 4 times that the player is on the right side of the shoulder.
Yeah.
And okay, the first 2 times he knows he needs to know it, but maybe that 3rd time he doesn't need to know, but then that 4th time he needs to know again. But it just keeps me like sharp that there's a player kind of moving behind my defenders.
Yeah.
And it's the perfect way to keep yourself in the game. So I think that's a beautiful way to look at it.
Yes.
And I think it's especially important for young goalkeepers as well to realize like we always need to be tuned in. There's not a single moment where the goalkeeper's allowed to have a breather. As a striker, you can have a breather. Midfielder can have a bit of a breather, but I think in our position we need to be elite.
And I think too, with nowadays, with all the social media going on and everything, like the attention span of the newer generation is going to be even shorter. So I think for us, it's better to have more practices like this, because the lesser your attention span is, the more mental breaks you're gonna get into a game. And so for example, I erase my social media 3 days before for games.
Wow.
Because I want to be, and I read a lot of books because I think reading trains your brain to be focused.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I get a mental break, I will take the book a little bit away. But the longer I read, the less mental breaks I need. And I think, for me this is a great tip for new generations to work on your intention, work on your concentration, just as much as you work in the gym.
On the physical side.
Yeah, because this is, at the end of the day, what's gonna make you very consistent, I believe.
End of the day, it's all details. And like you said, it's match days when you need to perform, but it's not just the stuff you do in an hour and a half before the game. It even goes as far as deleting the socials 3 days before, so that you really feel fresh. Because I've seen that before as well, especially when you have those long away trips.
Yeah.
You could be in a bus for 2-3 hours on game day. What are you doing in those 3 hours? Are you resting your eyes?
Yeah.
Or are you just, are they flickering? Are they getting all that light in from a phone screen?
Yeah.
So I think it's beautiful to hear how much detail goes into your preparation.
Yeah.
And looking forward to see it on the pitch as well.